Welcome to KTV2, where family comes first.
From nature to technology, we fuel your family's curiosity
and connect to powerful stories that bring families closer.
Then dive into educational adventures for your curious minds,
where family entertainment is second to none.
Your go-to channel for quality time together.
Explore the world through captivating documentaries.
Rise and shine with our morning family shows.
Because at KTV2, every moment is family time.
We connect you to the latest stories and developments around the world with transparency and honesty right here at KTV2, where we are second to none.
Good evening, I'm Rita Abdou from Ya Hala Kuwait, where we discuss great topics, of course, 5 days a week here. So if you want to know more about events happening all over Kuwait and of course subjects that are great for women and inspiring, please watch here.
Ya Hala Kuwait, your daily show on KTV2, the family channel. Watch us every night during the weekdays as we cover reports, segments, and guests all about our lovely country, Kuwait.
Watch Ya Hala Kuwait every Sunday to Thursday, starting at 5:45 p.m. for the latest when it comes to variety right here in the state of Kuwait. All kind of different things you can see right here on your favorite program on KTV2, the family channel, Ya Hala Kuwait.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our special live coverage of the 2024 United States presidential elections. I'm your host, Amran Al-Dalal, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my co-host, Badriya Saleh.
Thank you for that, Amran. With the election day just around the corner on November 5th, the world is closely watching what could be one of the most pivotal elections in recent U.S. history. Tonight, we will dive into the key aspects of this election, from its impact on global affairs to how the next U.S. president could reshape the country's security strategies, both at home and abroad. Amran?
Joining us today is Dr. Mustafa Bahbahani, expert in international affairs and relations, who will guide us through the U.S. presidential elections process, including tackling potential return of Republican candidate and former U.S. President Donald Trump to the White House and the promises of Democratic candidate and Vice President Kamala Harris. We'll be back after this break. Now, I would like to Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Join us in welcoming our guest, Dr. Mustafa Bahbahani, to discuss how the outcome of this elections could affect global affairs, regional security, and domestic policies in the U.S. Let's start with a broader view. Dr. Mustafa, I would like to welcome you first and foremost.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, with the U.S. presidential elections right around the corner, how do you foresee the outcome of elections affecting global political dynamics? Will we see a shift in international relations depending on whether Trump or Harris wins?
Yes. U.S. election is very important for the world, and especially for Kuwait. And it is very competitive now with the two candidates. It depends on the states. For instance, the Democrat will most of the time win California, the big state, and New York, and Republicans mostly in the South, Texas.
Yes.
But this year is interesting because a lady candidate also has a chance to win.
Yes. So now shifting to another issue, what changes in U.S. security policies can we expect if Trump wins versus Kamala Harris?
It will be, if Donald wins, less stable than Kamala Harris. So we will see the first win, but at the same time she has a big experience as a vice president, and the issues are also attractive for women and for new, but as I said, is very close. Now she's advancing a little,
yes,
but we have to see next about 10 days how it's going to move. So it is, as I said, some states like Michigan also is important, and the vote of the Arabic community,
yes,
also, and also the black votes usually lean towards Democratic. So as I said, we have to also watch the next 10 days or so. But I cannot say definitely, but I think Donald Trump has a lot of problems also.
He does, and there are certain states it's very difficult to turn red. For example, New York.
Yes.
Yeah, it hasn't voted Republican since 1984, which was Ronald Reagan's second term, I believe, and you have Connecticut and New Jersey as well. They haven't voted Republican since 1988, and that was George H.W. Bush at that time. So
but the issue is also important. The Republican is about the migration from Mexico. They use that as Trump is saying we have to protect the borders. So this issue is benefit for Republicans. So as I'm saying that Kamala Harris has a good chance this time.
And how might the U.S. outlook shift under Donald Trump's potential second term compared to a Harris presidency where she's promising significant reform?
Yes, she's promising to give homeowners and some also money, also about the women.
Empowerment, you mean?
The woman is
votes?
Yes.
Okay. So, but can we say if history, like I mentioned, how the last time New York voted red, New Jersey, Connecticut, does history really dictate these future outcomes? Do you believe we can find any patterns from the past that can tell us what is going to happen?
Well, there are main things. Some the states belong to historically to the Democrat and some to Republicans, but it depends on events. What happens every election? What is the most event? Or for instance, we have seen a lot of Arab voters who were voting Democrat now either abstain or because of what happened in Gaza.
Yes.
So now there is also some Arab voters are voting or abstaining.
Because of that situation, yes.
And also usually there is a third candidate or fourth candidate is taking votes also.
Yes.
But it affects one side or other, but they usually nobody wins other than Republican or Democrats.
And I definitely have more questions about that, sir. Dr. Mustafa, thank you for your insights. We'll continue shortly after this. The U.S. electoral system is a complex framework for selecting leaders at various levels of government, involving primaries, general elections, and electoral college. Each state sets its own voting laws aiming for democratic representation while facing challenges like voter access and election security. Ongoing debates about electoral reform highlight the system's vital role in American democracy. More in the following report.
The United States Congress is the first constitutional institution in the United States of America and is considered the legislative body in the political system. The Congress consists of the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives consists of 435 members elected every 2 years and represent electoral districts in all states. The Senate consists of 100 members, and the Constitution stipulates equal representations for all states in it at a rate of 2 representatives for each state regardless of its population. In the House of Representatives, members elect a Speaker of the Council or a spokesman, as well as a majority leader and a minority leader in the Council. The Speaker of the House of Representatives is the most influential member in it, as he comes second to fill the position of the country's president in the event of a vacancy after the vice president. The United States House of Representatives has the right to vote on the federal government budget and has the power to impeach the President and the Supreme Court Justice, in addition to issuing bills to increase revenues, and is entrusted with choosing the President of the country in case where no presidential candidate obtains a majority. In this case, the representatives of each state has one vote. The House approves most bills by anonymous approval, like the Senate, or by suspending their provisions, which are the two fastest methods in the legislative process. As for the second chamber of the American legislative institution, it is the Senate, which is the upper house of Congress, and the membership of the representative in it, known as the senator, lasts for 6 years, and a third of the member of the council are renewed every 2 years by direct general voting. The Vice President of the United States of America heads the Senate, but the Senate chooses an actual chairman from among its members belonging to the majority party, and the chairman heads the session of the Senate in the absence of the Vice President, and the Council also chooses leaders by the majority and minority within it. As for the powers of the Senate, it has several powers that the House of Representatives does not have, including approving treaties and agreements before the President signs them, as well as approving appointments to several senior positions such as Supreme Court justices, some military positions, and ambassadors. The Senate played a major role in passing the Civil Liberties Act on June 19, 1964, which expanded civil and political rights and ended discrimination in public life in favor of African Americans.
Hello and welcome back to our special live coverage of the 2024 U.S. presidential elections. We're happy to have us joining us now on the line is Aziz Fahmy, a political analyst, joining us from Skype all the way from Washington, D.C. to shed light on the importance of this election and its implications. Mr. Fahmy, thank you so much for being with us today. From Washington's perspective, what's the biggest stakes in this election for global affairs and particularly in relation to the Middle East?
Well, it has a lot of significance for several reasons and several areas. Number one, if Trump comes to the White House, he is planning to suspend the military assistance to Ukraine and to force Ukraine to go into peaceful negotiations with Russia, which means to accept surrendering some territorial, Ukrainian territorial to Russia. Second, we are going to see tension toward Iran because, you know, the U.S. had a deal with Iran to reduce its enrichment of uranium under Obama, but when Trump came to office in 2017, he unilaterally pulled out of this agreement, while the rest of the world, which was party to this agreement, were against it. So what Trump will do towards Iran in his next term, if he is to win this election, only God knows where this can take us. Third, in terms of the Middle East, that will be the most devastating part because Trump asked Bibi Netanyahu not to conclude an agreement of exchange hostages for Palestinian prisoners because he wanted to use the war as a wedge against Harris and Biden. The reason is a lot of Arab Americans who present a big percentage or a certain percentage in some of the swing states, which will actually decide the end of this race. They are very angry with Biden's support to Israel throughout this last year, and they decided that they are going to vote for a third party. They are determined to punish the Democratic Party, and the result of their punishment is going to be handing the White House to George Bush, to Donald Trump. And the biggest example of that is in Michigan. Michigan is a very critical state, and Trump was able to win this state in 2016. Biden was able to bring back Michigan to the Democratic column in 2020, and now it is in the teeter to go back to Trump because the Arab Americans are going to vote for a third party or to stay this election and don't vote at all because they are so angry with Biden administration handling the war in Gaza. And so we don't know what the result will be. I mean, I think the campaigning phase of this campaign is over, and now we are in the phase of getting the vote out. Many states started the process of voting already, but the continuation of the vote is going on in at least 7, 8 states. But the biggest push is going to be on November 1st, and therefore the idea is to concentrate the effort on getting the vote out, make plans how to reach people, how to facilitate rides to the voting centers and so forth. So, it might be too late to change anybody's mind, but this is going to be very, very decisive election in terms of the future of the United States and the region.
Mr. Fahmy, Donald Trump supporters often point to his business sense and his role in elevating the U.S. economy during his previous term in office. Do you think his reputation as a successful businessman will give him an edge over Harris, or would you, particularly amongst the voters who are concerned about economic growth for the country?
Okay, well, if we listen to the discourse of Donald Trump, you would definitely think that this is the case, because he all the time saying, well, under Harris, we are going into a major economic crisis like we have never seen before. It's going to remind us with the Great Depression in 2019 and so forth. This is a repetition of what he said in 2016. If Biden gets in, the economy will crash, and we're going to have this and this and that. But what happened? So Biden won the election. Now the economy is in one of its strongest states. The stock market just announced in the last week or so historic increase. So all the hot air balloon that Donald Trump used did not really pan out in terms of economic situation in the United States under Biden. And so now he's doing the same thing. If Harris gets in, she will destroy the American economy. And she already destroying the American economy. But, the data does not support what he's saying.
As Mr. Aziz Fahmy, political analyst, speaking to us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, sir, for your input. Now we will head back to my esteemed colleague, Umran, and our distinguished guest, Dr. Bahbahani.
Donald Trump is the 45th President of the United States from 2017 to 2021, and the Republican nominee in the U.S. presidential election of 2024. His pre-election life, Trump began his business career while still in college, investing in Philadelphia real estate before joining his father's business full-time in 1968. Throughout the 1970s, Trump expanded the Trump Organization by acquiring properties outside New York City and moving to Manhattan affluent market. The 1980s solidifies his reputation as a major developer with notable projects like the Trump Tower in Atlantic City. By the time he announced his presidential candidacy in 2015, the Trump Organization has diversified extensively. In June 2015, Trump announced that he would be a candidate in the U.S. presidential election of 2016, pledging to make America a great America again. He won in 2016 presidential election against Hillary Clinton by securing key states in the Electoral College. His campaign effectively focused on issues like immigration, trade, and economic revivals, resonating with voters in battleground states. The Trump administration, which lasted from January 2017 to January 2021, was marked by significant policies and events. One major economic initiative was the Tax Cut and Job Act that reduced the top marginal federal corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, highlighted as the most significant federal tax reform enacted in the United States in decades.
Welcome back, dear viewers, with this live coverage of the U.S. 2024 presidential race with our guest in the studio, Dr. Mustafa Bahbahani. Now, Dr. Mustafa, let's dive deeper into what a Trump presidency could mean if he wins in 2024. Now, how do you think Trump's changes could reshape the U.S. outlook domestically and internationally, please?
I think he will want to take revenge.
Okay.
Democrat, and he will elect a member of the Supreme Court now. He will have a hold on the Supreme Court, which is very important.
Because of his ongoing case recently?
Yeah, no, this one is separate. This is just for the Supreme Court to vote conservative.
I see.
Because they have majority now, the conservative. But on the other side, it will affect also the Congress.
Yes.
So he will try to change a lot. But if he's elected, as I said, all cases against him will drop.
Yes.
So, but internationally hectic, you know. Sometimes he's with China, sometimes with the, so it's not be very stable.
Yes. So what about internationally? That's domestically. What about internationally?
Also internationally, as I said, he wants to make a deal with countries like Russia, which affect Ukraine, the war.
Yes.
And also want to get close to China. So anything for his benefit, he will do. And so it's going to be, I think, hectic. On the other hand, Kamala Harris bring stability to United States.
I see.
And have also effect on the international situation on Ukraine. And she has to change also the policy against Israel. Maybe can try to solve the Gaza war.
Yes. Now, when we speak about the role of media, whether it's traditional like this or social media, it seems to be more influential than ever. How much does it influence the outcome of this election?
Yes, it's very effective, as you said, now with the technology advance, social media, everybody has a phone. And
exactly.
Look, so at this time, the social media plays a big part in this, especially in U.S. because social media there is
it's huge.
Yes.
Yes. Now, Dr. Mustafa, from your research and your readings, how do you think the international community is preparing for the outcome of this 2024 election? What do you think the initial reaction would be?
I think that they want the U.S. to play a more stable role and also not to get into conflicts, but solve international situations.
Yes.
Because the U.S. Big power, one of the big powers, so it is important to have stability in the world.
Absolutely, it is crucial.
Because also other countries follow U.S. Like most of the European follow the U.S.
Yes. So whether it's culturally or even policies.
Yes, even defense.
Even defense, exactly,
NATO.
Yeah.
Yes. So it is very crucial. As I say, also for Kuwait. We want more stability, more issues to solve and advance economically.
This was a question I wanted to ask you also. This is a question hidden in plain sight. Most of us here in Kuwait locally ask the question of why should we care about an election that's not in our country? What do you say to people that think that?
U.S. a big power and internationally also influence. We as a GCC, we want stability to advance economically, and so stability for us very important, and
exactly.
also security.
Yes.
So it is an advantage for us that the U.S. Influence positively.
Absolutely,
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Mustafa, for your insight. We'll be back after this. Now, dear viewers, let's switch gears with some statements all the way from Saudi Arabia to help us understand the outcomes from this year's U.S. elections. Badriya has more.
Thank you, Amran. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now is political analyst and columnist Faisal Shimri to focus more on the impact of the U.S. presidential elections on U.S. Gulf relations. Mr. Shimri, thanks for joining us tonight. How do you see the 2024 elections shaping the future of domestic policies in the United States, particularly in areas of immigration, economic recovery, and in healthcare?
I think this election is a pivotal moment in the United States history. I think it's one of the most crucial elections because this election is a fight for the soul of America. America is in a crossroad today due to the fact the polarization in the political system within the United States. It's a fight between being a centrist country or leftist ideology taking over the country. And I think there is two different approach. Kamala Harris administration will push a leftist ideology and agenda and wokeness, and Donald Trump administration will be going back to normal, going back to opening lines with the relationship with the U.S. Long time allies. The two administration will deal with and tackle domestic policies differently, in a sense that a Harris administration will be going with a lot of the same economic policies that a Biden administration had, which caused inflation, which caused the rise of unemployment, which caused a lot of hardship on the American middle class due to high taxes. I think a Trump administration, the American people had 40 years of Trump. It had the inflation went down. They implemented trickle-down economics based on Reaganomics, and it helped the economy big time. Even during COVID, it helped. So I think the U.S. is in a crossroad. It's a fight for the soul of America. America could change forever if the Democratic won, and it also could change for at least the next 10 years if the Republicans take the Congress and the Senate and the White House.
Now, going back to something you briefly just mentioned, polarization in the United States. Do you think that this election could further deepen the divide between Democrats and Republicans? And how might this affect governance for years to come in the U.S.?
I believe that this election come in a crucial moment in the U.S. history. We have to take into account polarization within the U.S. political system. It happened all the time. In the 1970s, during President Nixon administration and his resigning from his post, the protest, anti-war protest, the civil rights movement of 1960 and 64. So it's part of the American system. It's part of the American way, or political way. However, this election, the polarization is and the divide is very deep within America, especially between the far left and the far right. I think America, have the dynamic to reestablish itself, have the dynamic to go back to the middle.
Now, shifting from a national perspective to a Gulf perspective, what would you say what could this election rather, if either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump wins, mean? What would this mean for U.S. relations with Gulf countries in particular, regarding security and cooperation and economic ties between the two parties?
I deeply believe that the Gulf countries will have the dynamic to deal with both parties, have the dynamic to deal with Trump administration or Harris administration. We've seen President Biden visiting the Gulf, visiting Saudi Arabia after a tough start in relations between the Gulf country and the United States under the Biden administration. Eventually, reality prevailed. Eventually, political realism prevailed, because the role of the GCC countries is very crucial for U.S. foreign policy. So I don't see a difference in dealing with the Democratic administration or Republican administration, but I think it's going to be much better for the region if it was a Republican administration, because we had 4 years of under Trump administration with going back to the Monroe Doctrine, U.S. foreign policy Monroe Doctrine, which is based on mutual benefits, based on economic relations, based on political relations, and the U.S. under Republicans will always pivot to realism when it comes to politics. will pivot in relying on long-term U.S. allies. So the reality is I don't see a huge difference. The Gulf countries have the dynamic to deal with both parties.
Mr. Faisal Shimari, political analyst and economist, thank you for your input. Now, viewers, we'll head back to after this report with our U.S. correspondent, Dalia El-Khoumi.
Less than a fortnight before polling day, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are locked in a nail-biting, close U.S. presidential election race, triggering pessimism among Democrats and confidence among Republicans, even though polls suggest both candidates have a near-equal chance of entering the White House.
You're going to say, Kamala, you're no good. You did a lousy job. You destroyed San Francisco. You destroyed California. You destroyed everything you touched. You're not going to destroy our nation. Kamala Harris, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here. You're fired.
The Guardian 10-day polling tracking average shows Harris, the Democratic nominee and U.S. Vice President, maintaining the single-point advantage over her Republican rival she had a week earlier, 47% to 46%. Surveys for the 7 battleground states are equally cliff-hanging and provide little obvious clue as to who will reach the threshold of 270 electoral votes essential for victory.
And generations of Americans before us led the fight for freedom, and now the baton is in our hands.
According to poll averages, Harris leads by a single point in Michigan and by less than 1% in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and Nevada. Trump has a 2-point lead in North Carolina and a 1-point lead in Arizona. While consistent with other surveys that the two candidates were neck and neck, it showed that pro-Harris voters in all states are more strongly against Trump than former president's supporters are against her. Former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris are in a dead-heat race for the White House, according to the latest poll, the third major national poll in a row that found the two tied, keeping the race wildly unpredictable less than 2 weeks before Election Day. Reporting from in front of the White House, this is Dalia Al-Khoumi, Kuwait TV.
It's disappointing, but again, I will say Kamala's literally going against Trump, who said she is lying about her race, lying about working at McDonald's is the most recent thing, pretty much saying the things that she literally did was not true. So I will say I don't think it's very a fair playing field. However, I think ideally, in my ideal world, politicians would not resort to name calling.
Typically when it comes to politics, right, there's a lot of mudslinging, as you were saying earlier, and as far as the fascist comments go and things like that, I don't believe it's a fascist approach that Trump is trying to do here. What I think it is him just trying to take everything together and just be direct about it. He's not trying to beat around the bush, and that's honestly kind of what I've been noticing, what I've been seeing from Kamala's side too, is she's done plenty of interviews and stuff, asking her about, what her plans are, what her greatest accomplishments are, and she's been dodging questions and things like that.
I think they're scared. I think they're scared because Trump is going to come through this. Kamala, she can't answer a question to save her life, fully. And so I just think that they're scared and intimidated by Trump.
Welcome back, dear viewers. What you just saw was a segment that explores the perspectives of Americans on each candidate. And now we're back with our esteemed guest in the studio, Dr. Mustafa. Now, Dr. Mustafa, Kamala Harris has been campaigning on a platform of inclusion, reform, progressive policies. Now, if she's elected and she plans to implement these several ambitious projects related to healthcare, education, and climate change, how realistic is it for her to accomplish all of this?
I think if she wins, she can accomplish this. But also she needs the support of the Congress.
Yes.
This election also important for the House and the Congress to pass this. But if she becomes First Lady President, she can fill her promises.
Yes.
It also affects, as I said, others, the Supreme Court also. United States has the power, but she has to work with the other branches of government. I think it's realistic to do that, and then especially if we stop, spending so much money abroad for Israel.
Yes.
As I said, she brings more stability to the government and also the economy.
Yes. Now, Dr. Mustafa, how do you think Kamala addressed the ongoing conflict with Gaza and the Israeli occupation?
Well, it's very difficult because you have the lobby, the Jewish lobby strong there, but United States reputation, especially in the Middle East, is negative now, and the United States needs the support of Arab and Islamic countries. So if she can solve the problem, it will make less negative with other countries.
Yes.
Especially the Arab and Muslim countries.
Yes. Well, Dr. Mustafa, we have this short report we'd like to see together, and we'll get back. Dear viewers, please watch this report, and we'll be back right after. Stay tuned.
Kamala D.B. Harris is the 49th Vice President of the United States in the Democratic administration of President Joe Biden. Prior to political life, Harris worked as a Deputy District Attorney from 1990 to 1998 in Oakland, California. She rose through the ranks, becoming District Attorney in 2004. In 2010, she was narrowly elected Attorney General of California, winning by a margin of less than 1%, thus becoming the first woman and the first Black American to hold the post. In 2012, Harris delivered a memorable address at the Democratic National Convention, raising her national profile. Furthermore, in early 2015, Harris declared her candidacy, and on the campaign trail called for immigration and criminal justice reform and increase in the minimum wage and protection of women's rights. American election encompass federal, state, and local levels, with the presidential election held every 4 years and congressional elections occurring biannually for the House and every 6 years for the Senate. Primaries and caucuses are conducted by parties to select candidates. The electoral system primarily uses a first-past-post method, and the Electoral College determine presidential outcomes. Major parties include Democratic and Republican parties, alongside smaller ones like the Green and Liberation parties, each with a distinct platforms. Meanwhile, the U.S. presidential race has become extremely close, with the contest between Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris and Republican former President Donald Trump having settled into a statistical tie. Once the presidential candidate attain majority of electoral votes, they then have won the election. Moreover, the winners are scheduled to be inaugurated on January 20, 2025 as the 47th President and 50th Vice President of the United States.
Welcome back, dear viewers, to this live coverage of the 2024 U.S. election. Back with our esteemed guest in the studio, Dr. Mustafa Bahbahani. Now, Doctor, so Harris has spoken about restoring America's moral leadership in global conflicts. We just talked about Gaza. Do you think she can successfully navigate the complex dynamics of Gaza and propose a lasting solution?
She had a chance to do that because of her professional activity she had before, and so she's more stable and capable to do that. As I said, the Democrats need to be also have positive effect in the outside the countries, because this is how America becomes a leader and benefits. The role of the U.S. is very important for stability of the world and benefiting by having more friendly countries.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was our guest, Dr. Mustafa Bahbahani, expert in international affairs and relations, sharing his insights on the upcoming U.S. presidential elections. Doctor, it was a pleasure having you. We thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Dear viewers, as we wrap up tonight's coverage, a presidential nominees race to reach the White House in the 2024 U.S. election, with two very different visions on the line. The outcome will undoubtedly have lasting effects on global diplomacy, security, and domestic policies. I'd like to thank my co-host, of course, Badriya Saleh. Join us tomorrow as we continue to monitor the developments and Election Day approaches. Thank you for keeping us company, and goodbye.